Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 53. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Monday, Steelers Nation. Very busy Monday. We'll try to keep this show relatively short, at least by our standards, as the Pittsburgh Steelers play today at 5 p.m. against Washington football team. A lot to talk about with that one today, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to this game today. Obviously, a little bit earlier start. That should play well. I don't know. I was all geared up for all these games right in a row and working, kind of a lot longer. Just having a messed up schedule. But I think overall, and I'm sure the Steelers are concerned about this, I think it's going to work out for the Steelers Depot crew. Okay, this week here. But yeah, absolutely an interesting game. I think on tap for Monday night against Washington.
And I think we'll have some interesting predictions for this game a little bit later in the show. Also, a little bit later in the show, we will have a guest on, Washington beat writer Michael Phillips, who covers the team for the Richmond Times-Dispatch. You can follow him on Twitter at MichaelPRTD. Again, Michael Phillips, will talk to him in a little bit to get the state of the Washington football team. Dave, let's start with giving a state of the Pittsburgh Steelers in their injury report. A couple of key injuries in this one. Cornerback Steven Nelson has been ruled out with a knee injury he suffered at some point late, I guess, in the Baltimore game. Finished it out, but had an MRI. Don't know the exact details of the injury, but he will not play today versus Washington. Also, Chris Boswell is currently listed as doubtful. Probably by the time you're listening to this, he's likely been ruled out, or the Steelers have made a roster replacement. But Boswell with that hip probably will not play today versus Washington. So Matthew Wright will make his NFL debut. We assume be elevated off the Steelers practice squad. He was signed this past Monday, and Big Ben, while listed as questionable, is fully expected to play in this one.
Yeah, and I guess technically Nelson's doubtful though, right?
Oh, is he doubtful?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't think anybody's expecting him to play. Obviously, has not practiced all week. We have not. People keep asking me, well, what happened with? Why aren't we hearing more about the MRI? Well, Mike Thomas not just going to release a press release. Obviously with him, with Nelson not going on IR, at least not yet. That's probably all you need to know. And with him being doubtful this week, obviously the knee injury is serious enough that it's going to keep him out of the game. But I don't think we're looking at any type of a season-ending injury with him, or else, obviously there's still a couple of moves probably going to be made later on this afternoon. But at least on the surface and using the Blues Clues method and history of this team. It's safe to say I think that Nelson's not going to play in this game Monday night against Washington, and what the future holds for him past this week to be determined. Who knows? Maybe he'll miss another game on top of it, but at least it doesn't look like on the surface that this is a season-ending injury with him. Boy, this thing with Chris Boswell and his hip kind of went quick, didn't it? And it makes you kind of wonder some of these kickoffs that Boswell has had, and obviously some of these misses that he's had. You have to wonder if this has been kind of an ongoing issue here, and maybe kind of highlighted by the fact that they did bring in Matthew Wright earlier this week for the practice squad and all. Was this something that maybe has kind of been giving him some issues there? So obviously something to watch with Chris Boswell, and then now lo and behold you get a kicker coming in that has no NFL experience. That's just one other thing to kind of worry about here, I think, if you're a Steelers fan heading into this game.
Absolutely, and I don't think Wright has kicked in a stadium in a game since his college days at Central Florida back in 2018. He was an undrafted free agent. He actually signed with Pittsburgh back in 2019, was carried through camp with them. The quick scouting report on him, he had a really successful career at Central Florida. He's actually a PA native from Lancaster. He's an aerospace engineer, so kind of had that whole like Josh Dobbs things I remember talking about whenever they first signed him. His accuracy is good. His leg strength is not. Like his max is probably about 50 yards, and that was a training camp in warm, sunny Latrobe in August. And so in December in Heinz Field, it's probably going to be a little bit closer than that. So the leg strength is a concern with Matthew Wright, and obviously just the jitters and the unknown of a new kicker is going to be an uncertainty for Steven Nelson. Cam Sutton expected to start at right quarterback, and we'll just have to see in dime packages. Will Sutton kick to the dime spot and put Justin Lane at right corner, or will Sutton stay on the outside, and do they go with someone like, say, an Antoine Brooks Jr. in that dime role? That is not known right now.
Yeah, going to be. Look, I mean, you got a good. We'll talk about it quite a bit in this podcast throughout it. A guy that you and I have been big on coming out, and that's scary Terry McLaurin there. And at some point, you have to think that a guy like the Steelers don't make their corners travel for the most part usually. Be interesting to see if they do that. I don't think they will, at least. So there's going to be some instances here where Sutton and or Justin Lane get kind of singled up on Terry. This guy can make things happen in a hurry. He's not overly, I wouldn't consider him a burner, but he does have some speed. He's a great route runner, great hands, great combative catcher, and this is definitely a guy on the offensive side for Washington that's going to need a lot of attention in this game.
Absolutely. My guess is in dime, Lane will be the right cornerback with Sutton kicking inside of the dime spot, but we'll just have to see how Pittsburgh wants to play this. Am I missing any other minutia-related things, Dave, that I haven't touched on already?
Stephon Tuitt back this week, coming off the reserve COVID list. That's pretty significant. It sounds like James Conner is eligible to come off. Probably not going to come off today. The reports out there is that he won't play. Ben Roethlisberger ended the week as questionable. Evidently, some sort of stiff knee going on with him. He took a pretty good shot or two. We talked about, I think, already in that game against Washington, right in the jejunum.
Technical term.
Yeah. One of those shots there, we talked about him not having Pouncey there to pick him up off the ground. And speaking of Pouncey, nobody. It doesn't look like Pouncey's going to be back for this game. Obviously, the final roster moves can be made later on today, so we'll have to see how that turns out. It would be a huge plus if they get Pouncey back, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It doesn't look like James Conner or Gerald Hawkins, either one of those guys is going to come back this week as well too. It might be next week for those guys on top of it there. So the roster moves I'm kind of expecting today is an elevation for Matthew Wright. And Anthony Coyle, I think probably going to be set for another activation here because the Steelers need at least 8 offensive linemen dressed, right? And if they don't have, if Pouncey's not back from the list today, I believe that still only gives them 7 offensive linemen in total. So those are the 2 moves I think we're looking at today. That would give the team a 53-man roster, and then obviously they would have to have 5 guys inactive. I think Joshua Dobbs is going to be one of those. Obviously Steven Nelson, Chris Boswell. Who's going to be up or down? Buggs or Carlos Davis? I think that's one. And then Kevin Rader, I would think the tight end would be the other inactive there. So really, I think the only question is who do you sit, Davis or Buggs with Stephon Tuitt back?
Yeah, good question. Not sure how that's going to go. Maybe, I don't know. It's 50-50. I don't have a good feel either way for it right now, to be honest with you. Maybe Buggs just because Davis plays a little bit more nose and, don't really need Buggs if you have Tuitt holding down the 3-tech spot out there.
I chose Buggs, so we'll see which way that goes. I think I'm going to be right on the money on those other 4 there overall. But that's kind of what we're expecting, and that news should start hitting. I don't know, not too long after we get off this podcast here.
And just to recap, the Steelers' current COVID list, 3 players on it, as you mentioned, Dave, James Conner, Marquise Pouncey, and Gerald Hawkins. So those are the only 3 currently on the COVID reserve list. Dave, let's talk briefly about what happened last Wednesday, which already feels like an eternity ago against the Baltimore Ravens. Just kind of quickly recapping this game, some initial thoughts or overall thoughts from this one, watching the All-22. What'd you think?
Oh.
It feels like forever ago.
Yeah,
I don't remember this game.
it does. Look, once again, I think the thing that stuck out to me was good to see Benny Snell get a little bit more successful as the day went on. That's first and foremost. The drops, there's no way around not talking about the drops anytime you talk about the offensive performance in that game. Period. End of story. I thought, overall, look, Ben was off on some throws, but I think overall, I mean, if you don't have those drops in there, I think that game looks a lot better. I think it's not as close as it was on the scoreboard. A lot of those obviously happened in the red zone, as we already talked about. Key down situations as well there, and I think that sums up kind of the offense overall. Drops and still a lot of clunkiness in the running game overall. Period. And that sums that up. Defensively, uh, you know, yeah, there was. I think my biggest takeaway was the tackling in certain spots of that game was not great, but they did clean it up overall. The blown coverage on the trap there, and that would turn into the huge 75-yard touchdown there. Obviously made that game closer than what it should have been there. But overall, and look, I mean, you have to circle the loss of Bud Dupree in that game as being huge, for the season going forward. Alex Highsmith, there's a lot of reasons to be positive about him, but he's still got some growing to do, and he's going to have some warts along the way as well too. So what a big loss there. So I think my biggest takeaways was the continued kind of clunkiness of the run game. They got to stop dropping the football, and this just isn't specific to that game. This is a team that it kind of manifested itself in this game against Baltimore as far as huge numbers. But this is a team. Deontay, we've talked about chasing some of these balls down the field that, even though pass interference, maybe he should have caught. Juju's had a couple of them. Eric Ebron's had a couple of them. The drops have got to stop. And especially in red zone situations and in third down situations there. So the defense continually giving up, and this is a stat that I talk about with our guest Michael later on as well too. Justin, what a weird variance. Adjusted net yards per passing attempt number, best in the NFL. Am I surprised that number's there as we sit here in week 13? Absolutely not. What a great stat that is. However, they are giving up the league's largest yards per reception, which is weird, on top of it. That lets you know that they're giving up far too many explosive plays in the air when they do give up catches there. So that's something they need to get in line there.
You're talking about Pittsburgh or Washington?
Yeah, Pittsburgh, yeah.
Pittsburgh, yeah. Washington's kind of the same. Like, they have, I think, number one pass defense in terms of yards per game allowed, but they've allowed some of the most explosive 40-plus yard completions in the NFL. So just kind of
not 9 in total. I think 12 double explosive plays. So, look, they get it done on defense, except in that double explosive play category.
Right, yeah, very strange there. My overall thoughts, I echo everything that you said, Dave. I agree. My favorite moment in the game came in my least favorite play of the game, which was the Hollywood Brown 70-yard touchdown. And credit to Tom Mead, who initially found this one. And then I saw that when did Alex Highsmith just do that? He used what's called a ghost rush or a ghost technique, which is a really high-level advanced move for any pass rusher, especially a rookie who has not played a ton of football so far. And basically what it is you fake a long arm stab with a power rush initially, and then you drop your shoulder and you dip low and basically just get around the tackle. And Highsmith really did it, executed perfectly against left tackle Orlando Brown Jr., a really good left tackle and a tackle overall in football. And so to see Highsmith do that, although it came on a very negative play overall, obviously, again, you're still going to miss Bud Dupree massively. But I was like, well, that is a really impressive moment for a rookie to not only know that move, but then to pull it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's okay to be excited about him without a doubt, but this is a kid that, look, even on his sack against Dallas, a few weeks ago, it didn't start off as a good pass rush,
Right.
but at least this kid's showing us some variance in his pass rushes already. And we need to see these counters probably start increasing as time goes on, and I think he's got the athleticism that we kind of knew that coming out, and I don't think we've seen enough of him against the run. A positive with Alex Highsmith, somewhat, I think, this week. Going up against Washington in his first start is he's not going to be asked to play every snap there. I think it's clear that him and Ola Adeniyi are going to. Alex Highsmith should see the lion's share of it, but I think they're going to rotate him and Ola in. On top of it, there at least Morgan Moses will be back over at right tackle and not at left tackle there, because Morgan Moses is a very experienced, very talented tackle. He's seen a lot in this league. Cornelius Lucas, who is an upgrade from what they've been doing, I think, in totality. Cornelius Lucas has been around the league, I think, dating back to somewhere around 2014. Even as an undrafted guy, he's stuck around. He's seen a lot of it as well, too. But I think it just bodes better for Highsmith to face off against a guy like Lucas than it does a guy like Morgan Moses, who will spend most of his night battling against TJ Watt there. So, look, without a doubt, one of the things that we'll be looking at game by game going forward here for the remainder of this season is Alex Highsmith and his play not only against the run but as a pass rusher, to see it's an unfortunate situation with Bud Dupree, but we're going to find out pretty quickly what Alex Highsmith is and isn't, and what his warts are, and where he needs to improve.
Absolutely, we'll find out a lot about Highsmith. And yeah, just watching Dupree just especially closely in that game, knowing it was his final one of the season, all the little things he does well, setting the edge, defeating blocks, chasing runs backside and flying. And he made 2 or 3 tackles in that game against the run where he just flew in backside and, made up the play in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage. And those are the little things you take for granted, stuff that doesn't always show up on the box score in terms of gaudy numbers that a guy like Highsmith is going to have to replicate. Just really playing consistently, down to down, playing hard every single snap.
I don't think they're not going to test that kid Monday night, and test his aggressiveness too. His discipline. Look, Alex Smith is not the most mobile quarterback in the league, obviously, but they're not afraid to probably do some misdirection stuff with him, and Alex Smith will do a lot of things probably in this game where he reads what Alex Highsmith's doing off the edge there, whether it be some sort of maybe read option type stuff or RPO kind of situation there with him as well too. So Highsmith's going to be pretty amped up in this game. He's just got to watch that aggressiveness and make sure he understands that, especially in run-down situations, you got to protect that edge first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, if I was Washington, I'm running a screen to Highsmith's side, first play of the game with Antonio Gibson, because you said Highsmith's going to be so jacked up, and maybe you catch him being over-aggressive. So the battle is Alex Highsmith versus Alex Smith in this one. Any other final thoughts from the Ravens game, Dave?
No. I mean, they obviously should have beat them. They won the game. That's all that matters.
Mm-hmm.
But it should have been a more convincing. They could have put that team away a lot earlier than they did. And once again, the drops it'll be interesting to see how those wide receivers respond to this. And look, Ben hasn't had any practice this week, right? Went through he did practice on Sunday there, but that's just probably a faster paced walkthrough, if you will. So gonna be interesting to see how this group responds here this week.
Absolutely. All right, that is a recap of the Baltimore Ravens game.
Did I miss it? Did anything stick out on the all? Wormley, I think, had a couple of nice plays in that game. That was obviously good to see. Probably should have been another turnover or two, right? Didn't they drop one or two?
Yeah, Minka dropped that one on the play. Dupree got hurt.
And that kind of plays into my 5 keys into this game as well, too. All hands on deck, if you will, not just on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense over the last, 2 or 3 games, they've left maybe 1, 2, or 3 turnovers out there on the field.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, Dave, let's talk to our friend Michael Phillips. He's a reporter for the Richmond Times-Dispatch to cover the Washington football team. First time on the show. Really excited to talk to him. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at MichaelPR. TD. Be sure to tweet at him, let him know you heard him on the Terrible Podcast. So let's talk to Michael, and we will be back in just one moment.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. And as promised, it is game day. The Pittsburgh Steelers will host the Washington football team at 5 p.m. Eastern at Heinz Field for a kind of an interesting matchup here. You got a Washington team who's right in the hunt, right, still in that NFC East division, and with that game on tap now, as usual, we have a beat writer who covers the other team in to help us break down the upcoming contest. And this time we have Michael Phillips from the Richmond Times-Dispatch with us. He's a first-timer on the show. That's very rare for us. He covers, once again, the Washington football team. You can read his work at richmond.com. He evidently has visited 49 states as well, too. I bet he's got some stories to tell in that aspect. So with that, welcome to the show, Michael Phillips. Michael, happy Monday to you. Welcome to the Terrible Podcast.
Happy Monday. My first time at a Steelers game at Heinz Field. I've been to Pitt football and the Winter Classic with the Penguins, which was, of course, a lot of fun. But this is a rare matchup. We get this every 8th year.
Absolutely, and that's why it's kind of we have these with the rotating schedule. Sometimes as things work out, we don't get an opportunity. Maybe maybe some beat writers change in towns, and that I think that's been the case. How long have you been? First of all, how long have you been with the covering Washington for the Richmond Times-Dispatch?
Well, yeah, and this is a fun game. I interned at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette in 2006.
How about that?
Way back in the day. Ben Roethlisberger, the quarterback back then, too. So some things don't change. But this is now year 13, covered the University of Virginia. And now this is year 7 with the Washington football team. All of them complete does.
All right, give us a 30,000-foot look, to start with on Washington. Obviously, we kind of have seen the name change with the team, and look, I'm 52 years old, so it took a lot to stop saying the other moniker that the team has been known by for so long there, and start calling them Washington football team. Obviously, you've had the other stuff kind of. The other, I don't know if scandal is a good word, to possibly use, and then obviously you have Ron Rivera coming in, very, and his cancer situation and all that he's, fortunately looks to be on the positive side on as well. Really a lot of respect for Ron Rivera and the time he put in there at Carolina and all. Looks like he's got things going in the right direction at least on the defensive side of football there. So with all that, how about a 30,000-foot look at what all has transpired with this team this year and where they are right now as they enter this game against the Steelers?
No doubt. I won't blame you if you let one slip with the old name, because I do it at least twice a day. We'll all be doing it until there's a new name. So many different competing storylines this offseason. You've got the name change, which is pressured in part by the minority owners of the team. So those are the guys who own less than 20% shares of the team. The CEO of FedEx, the founder of Ryan Homes, the home building company, and a hedge fund investor. Together, they own 40% of the team. They're unhappy with the majority owner, Dan Snyder. A lot of people are unhappy with Dan Snyder, but they have been pressuring Dan Snyder to sell the team. Their relationship soured. Snyder, is very unhappy with them, has kind of kept them away from the games and away from the team. They responded by allegedly launching that campaign to change the name, which was effective. FedEx, whose CEO is one of the minority owners, was one of the first companies to call for a name change. Nike followed, Walmart, some other big companies. So they are in name limbo. They have said that they will play the rest of this season as the football team. A name announcement could come next summer, but it could also be a whole nother year away. And that's because the NFL's poking around on Dan Snyder's business. There was the Washington Post report, sexual misconduct among a lot of team executives, not Snyder himself, but a lot of the lead executives, over the past decade. And so the NFL has appointed an independent investigator to look into that, write a report. Beth Wilkinson's her name. She's a D.C. attorney. So her report will go a long way towards determining who owns the football team. And then, of course, once there's an owner, that owner can pick a name and we can run with it next year, whether that's Snyder or somebody else. So a lot going on there, and we haven't even got to the football. Ron Rivera hired as the head coach. He did go through cancer treatments. Jack Del Rio, former NFL head coach, of course, is his assistant, so he took over a lot of the practices early in the season while Rivera was having chemo. Thankfully, Rivera has beaten the cancer. He is expected to be fully cancer-free when they give that final diagnosis. He's not going through chemo anymore. The players love him. There are not a lot of good players, though. That is why they are 4-7. But a lot of the rookies he's brought in have had a big impact. I'm sure we'll talk about Antonio Gibson, the running back, who's had a great season. Rivera's eye for talent very clear early. A lot of people very bullish on him.
Good stuff there. And here they are entering this game. I think the thing that jumps out the most to me, especially after, they were on the main stage against Dallas on Thanksgiving, and with them being in the NFC, obviously we don't pay as close of attention to them as we would AFC teams over the years here. But I think after watching that game against Dallas and then doing the research that we normally do ahead of games, this is still a dangerous football team. And quite honestly, record aside, and now they have Alex Smith, a veteran quarterback, obviously been around the league a few times and played his share of games, under center there. Is this Washington team maybe the I don't know what's the best way to put it, the best kept secret right now, maybe in the NFC and definitely in that division? I mean, look, that division's wide open right now. I mean, Philadelphia's probably not going to win it. Dallas has had their share of problems. Yeah, Washington has the I think head-to-head on or the Giants have the head-to-head on Washington. But is this Washington team, they look like they're going in the right direction. Are they the best kept secret maybe in the NFC right now?
Yeah, they're a lot better team today than they were a month ago, and then certainly than they were 2 months ago. And a lot of that's the product of new coach, new system. They didn't have an off season. Ron Rivera's the line is always, I don't want to make an excuse, but we didn't have an off season. It's okay to make that excuse. First time coach coming in, installing all new stuff, and essentially everybody gets together at training camp and you're getting ready for week one instead of having mini camp, OTAs, and extended training camp, preseason games, all that. So, the first 4 games were essentially the preseason. They went 1-3 in that stretch. They're still finding their stride. And then, the move to Alex Smith halfway through the season because of, first the benching of Dwayne Haskins and then Kyle Allen, who came in to be quarterback, got injured. Alex Smith has looked very good. One of the great stories of the NFL this season, just a really smart quarterback. And, you're going to see a lot of similarities between the two, him and Ben Roethlisberger, just in terms of quick release, quick decision, very rarely a poor decision. If Alex Smith throws more than 2 interceptions in a game, I'd be very stunned. It's something he works very hard to avoid. I think the Steelers can bring him down and sack him, because sometimes the receivers are covered. But you don't see him stumble into trouble a lot. Both quarterbacks really the same in that way, where they're not going to be that nimble, make 5-6 seconds to make a throw, but they make good decisions. And this defense has really evolved as the season has gone on. Chase Young, the rookie, of course, who's in the running for Defensive Rookie of the Year, has been excellent at the pass rushing position. And I think they're catching their stride in a lot of ways. There's a reason they're a trendy pick to win the division.
When you look at offensively with them, look, Alex and I are huge draft nicks, and Alex has been to the Senior Bowl several times, and we paid close attention to scary Terry McLaurin, coming out his year a couple years ago. He is an up and coming wide receiver in the NFL, no doubt about it. Not surprised one bit by it. However, when you look past there and you look at the rest of the receiving core, maybe a step backwards from last year. I know they had a lot of young kids, and obviously Ike Hilliard, the Steelers wide receiver coach, was integral in that wide receiving group last year in Washington and all. But it looks like the offense, at least the passing game of it, runs through Terry McLaurin first, and then the tight end being Logan Thomas, and surprisingly, the 2 other guys I think top 4 receiving as far as total catches go are both running backs. In obviously you You mentioned the rookie Antonio Gibson, a very talented running back / wide receiver, if you will. And then J.D. McKissick, I was surprised to kind of see his name on that list as well, too. Is this offense, does it pretty much primarily have to go through McLaurin? And is that the Steelers' number one goal Monday night, take him away?
Unquestionably. And one of the fascinating subplots of this season has been early in the year, they were coaching the quarterbacks. Hey, Terry McLaurin's getting double teamed. Find the open guy, find the other receivers, get the offense humming in other ways. And then we've seen a shift over the last month or so to Terry McLaurin's being double teamed. Go ahead and throw the ball to him. He will find a way to catch it. I think everybody's just more and more stunned every week at how good this guy is. The team didn't even know when they drafted him. Third-round pick, special teams captain at Ohio State. The hopes that he would be that here, a special teams captain, a contributing receiver, things of that nature. But his attention to detail is incredible. He is growing and developing into truly one of the great receiving threats in the NFL. He's right up there. If he catches a couple passes today, he's at 1,000 yards for the season already. And that is with not having any other offensive weapons at that wide receiver position, as you mentioned. So even if he gets double teamed, they will force the ball to him, and he has been remarkably good at finding a way to bring it in. So that's one of the just intriguing subplots this season has been the emergence of Terry McLaurin, who I think is absolutely the best offensive player on the team by a mile. And then everybody else is kind of good enough. You're getting enough out of J.D. McKissick, enough out of Antonio Gibson. These guys can't win a shootout, and they know that. But they can eat up some clock. They can have 5-minute drives, and those drives usually end in field goals. But if the defense plays well enough, that's the formula for success.
Just to bounce off of that, Michael, it feels like the theme with this Washington offense is its versatility with Antonio Gibson. McKissick feels like more of a receiver than he does a running back. Logan Thomas is running quarterback sneaks on 3rd and 1. Is that a philosophical thing by Ron Rivera, or he wants his guys to be versatile and throw a lot at you, or was that just something they kind of found along the way?
And with Antonio Gibson, he was a wide receiver in Memphis
Right.
in college, so it's a play to his strengths in a lot of ways. One of the things Rivera told us was that he wants Antonio Gibson to be his Christian McCaffrey here. Obviously, not to be Christian McCaffrey. That's a high goal that you're not going to achieve, but a guy who can get out in space, catch passes, be on the move. And then you get another guy in Logan Thomas, college quarterback, a NFL practice squad quarterback for a little while. Converted to tight end, but he's very smart. He knows what's going on the field. He's a security blanket kind of guy, and that he can pick up a blitz, get into open space. He can recognize the defenses in a way a lot of tight ends can't. And so you take advantage of that. You take advantage of the guys you've got, and if you've got a wide receiver at running back and a quarterback at tight end, you could throw your hands up or you could just make the most of it. And I think one of the really fun things last week, the Dallas game on Thanksgiving, they ran a number of trick plays. There was a fumble Ruski style play. There was Logan Thomas sliding in and throwing the ball. We saw them open up the playbook in a way we had not seen yet this year. I'm curious if that continues today. The kind of let's just throw out the kitchen sink and see what happens.
One other weapon for this offense that I feel like we might be talking a lot about after this game is Cam Sims. Big dude, 6'5", 215, only 13 catches this year, but 5 of those 13 receptions have gone for 20-plus yards. What's his story? Where did he come from, and what's his role in the offense?
Classic late bloomer, and a wide receiver at Alabama who high expectations when he came in, but battled injuries and just never quite cracked the depth chart the first few years. He was the classic preseason all-star. Two touchdown catches in that 4th preseason game, and then we didn't hear from him the rest of the year. But he has made the most of his opportunities. And the first game he's active was a game in New York against the Giants earlier this year. Ended up catching what could have been the game-winning touchdown pass. They went for 2. They didn't get it instead of forcing overtime. But a big catch in a key situation. It's exciting to see Ron Rivera kind of sifting through who's on the roster, and you can tell some of the guys who say, hey, this guy. You think he's going to be a starter, and Adrian Peterson, for example, you think he's going to be a starter, and then all of a sudden, he's cut before week 1. Ron Rivera knows what he's looking for. He knows what kind of guy he wants, and so to see Cam Sims, 3 years in the NFL and finally have that emergence, you're excited for those guys because you see them in training camp in the preseason, you see them working and waiting for their opportunities. But also he's a guy, he has come up clutch in some big situations this year, and they're not afraid to throw the ball to him in a key spot, which is very rare for a guy with 13 catches.
To flip over to the defense, Michael, I would say this Washington defense is one of the most underrated units in all of football. We know some of the big names, some of the first-round picks they have along that defensive line, but just across the board, who are some of the more underrated players on this defense that makes that unit go?
Yeah, and I think if you were talking to people in Washington, they'd also call it one of the more underachieving units in the NFL too, just based on that talent and based on their ability to do things. That's been one of the knocks this year. This is a team that's clearly built for the defense to win the game and the offense to manage it, but the defense has not been as good as a lot of people expected given the talent level. They have the most talented defensive line in football on paper. They just do. They have 5 first-round draft picks on the 4 defensive line spots. And so at any given time, there's a first-round draft pick, standing on the sideline waiting to come in and tag in. Chase Young's the best of that bunch. He's insane. You're going to love watching this kid play. He's high motor, very fun, never gives up on a play, handles double teams. He is the real deal, star in the making, as you'd expect from a number 2 overall draft selection. Came from the Ohio State, family with the Boses, of course, coming out of there. Very reminiscent of those guys and the impact they make on games. And then in the middle, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, both first-round draft picks out of Alabama, who hold it down in the interior. Ryan Kerrigan and Montez Sweat, your other 2 pass rushers who are first-round draft picks. Obviously, Ryan Kerrigan's been around for a while, a steady producer in the NFL. Montez Sweat, a first-round draft pick last year, coming into his own. It's on paper an outstanding group, but the knock has been they have not. They have been quietly efficient, but they have not forced turnovers. They have not forced the offense into mistakes. They have not had the fumbles, the sacks, the forced interceptions, and the hurried throws that are characteristic of great defenses. And that's really been one of the critiques on this group is, sure, they're good, but they're not changing the game. And with this offense and the way it's struggled at times, they have to change the game. It's something they have to do. You mentioned the secondary. Landon Collins was the big injury of the year. He was their safety. He went down. But it's a good secondary. Ronald Darby is strong in coverage. They've got Fabian Moreau on the other side. And Jimmy Moreland, the other cornerbacks. They're certainly they're not superstars on the back end, but they're good enough. And then 2 very young safeties right now, Cam Curl and Jeremy Reeves, both playing, both in that Rivera mold of kind of young guys who he's gotten some value out of already.
When you look at the offensive line and specifically at the injury report this week, I think I've been reading that Cornelius Lucas, who is battling an ankle injury, should be back, and I think Morgan Moses goes back to right tackle from left tackle. Is that what you're reading, or is that what you're seeing this week? And how big is that? Look, Morgan Moses has been around for a while. He can play either one of those spots, but I think he's probably a little bit more comfortable at right tackle than he is left tackle there. Cornelius Lucas, I think, is obviously a little bit more of an upgrade of what they've been doing across the board at tackle. How big is that, and is that going to be the case? Is Lucas going to be active tonight?
Yes, Lucas will be active, and Morgan Moses practiced all week at right tackle, not left, which was kind of our indicator that was coming down the pipe, that they would be back at full strength. Always better to be at full strength than injured, especially this time of year. You guys know that. But that gives them the flexibility to run the ball both ways, essentially. It also frees up the tight ends, frees up your roster. One of the things, when Morgan Moses moved to left tackle, they didn't have any good options at right tackle. David Sharp was the guy playing the position, but he's just not NFL caliber starter, and so they were having to leave a tight end in to chip with him and to block with him on every play. So now you're playing offense with 10 guys instead of 11 because you got a tight end devoted to helping out your right tackle. So, it'll put another receiving tight end back in play. It'll allow you to do more to both sides offensively. So I think it'll really open up the playbook in a lot of good ways for them.
Jack Del Rio obviously been around the league for a while, a former head coach, and him and Rivera both kind of defensive or are defensive-minded coaches, if you will. But how would you best describe Del Rio's kind of thumbprint on this defense overall?
It's one of the most fascinating things this season because Rivera is a defensive mind, as you mentioned, definitely has a vision for how he wants the unit to look. but he also knew he was taking on so much in Washington. And a lot of it had nothing to do with football. A lot of the stuff I mentioned earlier,
Right.
and then the cancer treatments, and then he knows he's going to play quarterback roulette because you didn't know what you had in Dwayne Haskins, and then that turned out to be a bust. He's let Jack Del Rio run the unit, but there have been little hints, in the weekly press conferences that just stuff where he says like, oh, Ron would be doing this differently, or Ron doesn't necessarily approve of what's going on here. So very popular parlor game here. Who's going to be the defensive coordinator next year? And I think if you were setting odds right now, it would not be Jack Del Rio. Although that said, look, his veteran leadership, stability, all the things he's brought to the team so far. While Rivera went through cancer treatments, to have an NFL head coach ready to step in, ready to run the practices, he's been very valuable this year. But I think we'll see next year a move to a more truly Ron Rivera defense.
Do you think Del Rio has one more shot to get recycled as a head coach, or do you think that ship has sailed?
I think the ship has sailed, and probably unfair in a lot of ways, but I think his political views are the reason why. I don't know how closely you guys follow. He's very big he was very big and vocal for Donald Trump this year in this cycle, and that just doesn't play well with NFL players right now. I know that plays well with a lot of the owners and even a lot of the fans, but his very outspoken support of that, and he had some tweets early on calling the coronavirus pandemic a scam and things of that nature that I think he's maybe become a little too touchy to take on in terms of being the face of the team.
When you look at them defensively, I really and you hit on it, man. You guys like Chase Young and obviously all the high pedigree talent that they have. Heck, we know a lot about John Bostic. He spent a season with the Steelers as well, too there. So we obviously know a lot of these names, and especially with them being high pedigree guys on top of it there. But I think one of the most amazing stats, as good as this defense has been, I think they've given up something like 12 explosive plays of 40 yards or more. Now, the Steelers, one of their bugaboos this season as well, too. I think the Steelers, despite having a solid adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat defensively, they have given up, I think, have the highest yards per reception in the league entering this game. So it's kind of a weird kind of stat, correlation there. What has been the biggest problem with this defense when it comes to these, what I like to call double explosive plays, and them, giving up 12 of them so far?
No doubt, it's been huge, and those are game-swinging plays, especially in tight games, and it's something they've got to get under control. Miscommunication has been the word, and you go back and you look at it, a lot of times it's the cornerback did not hand off to the safety. The safety thought he was getting help from the cornerback. The cornerback thought he was getting help from the safety. It's two guys looking at each other, shrugging their shoulders after the catch. I thought you were going to be there. I thought you were going to be there. Those kind of, and you can explain that away. First year, new scheme, didn't have an off season. We keep coming back to that, but I think it's fair to keep coming back to that. But it's a big issue, and now we're in week 13 of the NFL season. It's certainly time to start nipping those things in the bud. That's for sure.
Michael, just overall, how have players, and I assume the answer to this is positively, how have they responded to Ron Rivera, and what has he brought above all else to this team? It kind of feels like stability he's brought to this team. It's something that this team seemed to sorely need, but overall, what has been the most important element he's brought to Washington?
Yeah, and everybody liked Jay Gruden is an important first note on that. Jay Gruden, the former coach, was well liked by players, and he just didn't get the results. So I was curious, because certainly bring in a bit harder nosed of a football coach, how they would respond to that after Gruden, who was pretty famously lax in how he made the guys practice and things of that nature. But they love Ron Rivera. Internal polling is very high on the Ron Rivera approval rating. He works his butt off to have relationships with the players, to check in with them. I don't know Mike Tomlin, but a lot of things people say about Mike Tomlin, I feel like he cares about me as a guy and not just a football player. He works really hard to build those relationships, to build the trust. The week he benched Dwayne Haskins, he went into every position group meeting and just kind of took questions from them for an hour. He kind of laid it as, here's why I made the move I made. Here's what I'm looking for out of players. Here's why I did what I did. Ask me anything, I'll answer it. And the guys say yes. So I talked to some of the guys who did not agree with benching Dwayne Haskins. but they say, hey, look, man, when the coach comes in and he just levels with you like that, it builds the trust. Whether I disagree or not doesn't matter. He was willing to come in and explain it to me and treat me like a stakeholder here, and they really value that.
Yeah, it's actually a fun fact. The Steelers interviewed Ron Rivera looking for their head coach post Bill Cowher in 2007, and then obviously landed on Mike Tomlin. So a little bit of history there. That's going to be my last question for you, Michael. Was it Dwayne Haskins? Is the Haskins era over? Is there any chance next season where Haskins gets back in the starting quarterback mix, or is Rivera going to go out there and find his quarterback this offseason?
Extremely unlikely. And, it was not a cultural fit is probably going to be the terminology here. And, it's something Washington's been through a couple times now with RG3 and now with Dwayne Haskins is just, he's a specific kind of quarterback. That's not the way Ron Rivera's playing. And I think for Dwayne Haskins now, you look at this is a big moment in his career. So Urban Meyer at Ohio State, who coached him in college, has said, hey, this is a good kid, but you got to really stay on him. The work ethic isn't always there. Jay Gruden drafts him in, benches him, says, hey, this is a kid with a lot of talent. But the work ethic hasn't been there. I'm not seeing what I need to see in terms of film study, grinding coming in early, the practice habits. And now Ron Rivera is the third coach to bench him and to kind of have some of those things cited, whether publicly or anonymously. And so that's three really well-respected coaches. Yeah, I think everybody thinks very highly of Urban Meyer. Of course, Jay Gruden's knowledge speaks for itself, and Ron Rivera's. It's time for Haskins to face the music. I think his next chance will certainly be his last in the NFL.
As we start wrapping you up here, Michael, is this 2020 Washington team a playoff team, and is this a team that can potentially sneak up on somebody? I don't know, you'll say a Green Bay or the Saints or one of those teams, and maybe at least notch one win in the playoffs this year.
Wouldn't be the first time Ron Rivera's done it. He piloted it in at 7-9 in Carolina, pulled the playoff upset there in the first round. Look, the answer is no. Of course they're not good enough to be a playoff team. They're 4-7 and they stink at key offensive positions. But it's the NFC East. It's 2020. But punch your ticket to the dance, get in however you can, and on any given day, anything could happen. I think a lot of people have them as a trendy pick to win this one today. Would certainly be. If they can win one of these, their next few, they've got Pittsburgh, San Francisco, Seattle. If you can win one or two of those games, I think you certainly prove you can beat anybody because that is the league's top echelon there. I know San Francisco's down a little, but three very high caliber football teams on tap in these 3 weeks. If you win one of them, I think you prove you can beat anybody on any given day. So. And no, they're not even close to good enough. But welcome to 2020 in the NFC East. They're right in the thick of it.
All right. With that, we always try to round out the interview by getting a prediction from the beat writer and hopefully a score along with it. Look, I mean, it's no secret. Washington's had some rest here. They've had plenty of time to study the Steelers. The Steelers are coming off of not so great performance against Baltimore. A short week here. It's they lost outside linebacker Bud Dupree. They're not going to have Steven Nelson at cornerback there. They're not going to have their kicker Chris Boswell. Yada yada. I don't believe. I hate when people use the word trap game. I just do not think that exists in the NFL because these are all professionals. With all that, this game sets up to be an interesting game, I think, Monday night at Heinz Field. The line has kind of crept down throughout the week. I think it started at 10. I think right now it's 6.5. Somebody's got confidence that Washington's going to do something in this game. So I'll turn it over to you. What's going to happen in this game Monday night? Is this going to be the Steelers' first loss? And how about a final score prediction?
We call this a Kool-Aid game, and that is everybody in D.C. is drinking the Kool-Aid right now, flying high off the Thanksgiving win. This will finally be the game where Washington turns it around, points towards contention. We've had so many of these in the past 8 years, and this is actually something Ron Rivera and I have talked about because one of his questions is, why don't you give us the benefit of the doubt? Not just me, but kind of the other media that have been around the team for a long time. Why don't you give us the benefit of the doubt? Like in Carolina, we got the benefit of the doubt. In Pittsburgh, they get the benefit of the doubt. We've been here, man. We've seen this team's been a train wreck for 2 decades now. It just has 3 playoff games in 20 years. Speaks for itself. This has been a poorly run franchise. And so you don't get I get that you're a good football coach, but this building has just chewed people up and spit them out over the years. So Would I love for Ron Rivera to break through? Sure, I would love to cover a good football team every once in a while. That would be fantastic. It sounds like a lot of fun. But history says anytime you've got a Kool-Aid game and people are drinking it, you are in for a massive letdown if you are a Washington football team fan. So I got to pick against them today. I do think they'll keep it close. I think they're a good team. Give me 24-20. I don't think it's going to be a track meet or anything like that, but I think there could be some points scored. I'm waiting for the breakthrough, but I don't know. The part of my mind that's watched this show for so long says anytime they're drinking the Kool-Aid, that's a warning light.
Fair enough there. Michael, look, for a first timer on this show, you wouldn't know it. Alex and I have done this for a while and all. I think the listenership's really going to enjoy our interview with you today. And it's unfortunate the Steelers and Washington only play each other quite a bit, I think, sometimes in the preseason there, but obviously with the rotating schedule once every 4 years. So do us a favor and make sure you put us down. Remember us the next time we come calling, potentially, 4 years from now when these two teams do it again. So with that, Alex and I would like to thank you for being on the Terrible Podcast today with us, and enjoy the game and have a safe trip back home.
Thank you, Michael.
Well, thanks for having me. I'll look forward to chatting in 4 years.
All right, and welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our thanks to Michael Phillips, reporter for the Richmond Times-Dispatch. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at MichaelPRTD. Dave, it's unfortunate we only get to really see Washington 4 times a year because Michael was a great interview. Great answers, great information, great insight.
Yeah, once every four. Hopefully he's still around 4 years from now. Look, I think you and I talk about it all the time. Sometimes when we get these newer guys on that we're not used to talking to every 4 years, is you kind of wonder what you're going to get there. And I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I think he handled kind of the 30,000 foot view of where Washington is as a franchise. The biggest thing is you want these guys to come off as objective as possible, and give you the details of what's good and what's bad. And I think he did that. So pleased as punch with the choice that we made to have him on, and we hope people, especially if they're on Twitter, reach out to him and let them know how much it's appreciated having him on the show.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, let's start our own kind of preview of this Washington game. Again, kickoff 5 p.m. Eastern time today, starting with this Washington offense that obviously has kind of calmed down and shown a lot of stability with Alex Smith at quarterback, and I think that's one reason why their record is deceiving. They're only 4-7, but they went through a lot of struggles early in the season with Dwayne Haskins before pulling the plug and then eventually turning to Alex Smith. And it's a good offense with a lot of versatility, a lot of playmakers, and certainly a lot of guys Pittsburgh has to account for.
Yeah, look, I mean, overall, not a hugely explosive offense, but I think they've got the right guy in there. And look, Alex Smith throughout his career, I have peppered him, criticized him constantly for his lack of deep pass ability. Well, I think he's 10 of 19 on deep passes this year. And obviously a lot of those have gone to Scary Terry McLaurin, guy that you and I remain high on. I think you and I were both high. The biggest thing now, I think, going back to looking at Terry McLaurin coming out was why the hell didn't Ohio State use him more, throw to him more, because he's an extremely talented kid. I think that was really evident at the Senior Bowl with kind of the get-offs that he had in some of the tape that we watched. I cannot speak more positive enough about what he does. However, when you look at their offense, it sure seems like it better run through him quite a bit for them to be successful. Now, Antonio Gibson, very talented kid out of Memphis, one of those kind of guys that you can do a lot with, and I would expect Washington to try to do a lot. They've had plenty of time to prepare for this game, and if I'm them, knowing what the Steelers are probably going to try to line up against them, meaning probably a lot of base defense, I would think overall, because I would think that Washington probably going to try to come out with a lot of heavy packages there. I try to get a guy like Gibson lined up on one of those linebackers in this game, or the tight end, kind of a favorable matchup. And because I would think that the Steelers, first and foremost, the biggest thing in this game is try to take Terry McLaurin away from Alex Smith. And if that means a lot of two-man coverages, then so be it. And that's going to open up probably an opportunity. They're going to dare Washington to, I think, run the football on them.
Yeah, I think matchups in this one is going to be interesting just overall. How often can Washington get Terry McLaurin on Joe Hayden? Because that's probably the ideal matchup. Because Hayden, as good as he is still, and mentally above the neck, his intelligence is off the charts. Athletically, he's not what he once was, and it's going to be a struggle for him to try to keep up with McLaurin in a foot race downfield on a 9 route. So I think can they try to move? Because as you said, the Eagles don't travel their cornerbacks, and so we'll Washington try to move McLaurin around to get him on Joe Hayden on that offensive right side will be interesting to watch. And then also just how does Pittsburgh respond? Because Washington is probably going to run a lot of pony backfield, a lot of 2 running back sets with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick on the field. Usually McKissick is split out because they basically treat him like a receiver. So will Pittsburgh stay in their base in those moments, or will they go nickel to kind of address the fact that McKissick's kind of used more like a receiver? So I don't know which direction they would lean. My guess is maybe more nickel, but I don't know for sure. And that'll be interesting to see how Pittsburgh and Keith Butler respond to some of those 2-back sets Washington really likes to run.
Yeah, and once again, if they throw, Mike Tomlin talked earlier in the week about how they're going to. You're going to see you're probably a good chance you see 20 to 21 Steelers players log defensive snaps, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, Washington has so many versatile players and so many little wrinkles, and Pittsburgh's on a short week here. It's a lot to prepare for without a lot of time to actually prepare.
What I try to do is I try to go as large as I can, I think, if I'm Washington. I want to see the Steelers in base as much as possible, I think. Because
Okay.
I want to try to exploit one of those matchups with maybe a running back on a linebacker in those situations, or on say a safety such as Edmonds along those lines. And then on top of that, maybe occasionally I can get a matchup that I like on the outside with Terry against either Cameron Sutton or Justin Lane, whenever and if ever he's in the game there. But overall, I think if I'm Washington, I'm fine with the Steelers maybe kind of daring me to run. And look, they've got a good guard in how do you pronounce his last name?
Brandon Scherf.
Yeah, Brandon Scherf, a former top draft pick here in this league. And as we talk with Michael, it looks like they're going to have both their tackles back. I don't think this team, Washington, wants to get in a situation where they're dropping Alex Smith back 35 times in the game, right? I mean, I know Alex likes to get rid of the ball quickly, but I think the coverages it presented, the Steelers are going to try to play him a little bit more tighter, a lot less zone potentially than with a mobile quarterback there. So with that, I'm expecting. Look, the way Ben Roethlisberger can't beat you if he's not on the field, right? So that would mean ball possession type offense as well too. So I think Washington comes out more heavier looks, and I hope to maybe get the Steelers to play bigger packages. But if they get in a situation, as you said, if you have more of a pony type backfield, you can come out eventually and line it up, and if you get a smaller package against you, then maybe you can collapse that down and put both those guys in the backfield and do some interesting stuff with some wheels or whatnot, because both those backs, once again, are in the top 4 for Washington in pass catches this year. It goes McLaurin, then I think it goes Gibson, then I think the tight end, and then McKissick after that. So those guys can obviously catch the football, and those are the kind of mismatches that I want, is Gibson and McKissick on, a non-cornerback, if you will.
Yeah, they run a lot of jet plays with McKissick. Well, they'll, have him lined up wide like a receiver, but then bring him across in that jet motion, and they'll either hand or pitch the football off to him and get on the perimeter, or they'll use that as window dressing and then run their classic inside zone with Antonio Gibson. So it's a lot for defense to handle. And so, yeah, we'll see if they're in base or nickel. My guess is maybe nickel with Mike Hilton in those pony looks. And in the pass game, anytime that McLaurin's isolated, because they'll go 3-by-1, line McLaurin as the X, and they'll just throw a lot of deep shots to him. And either you're going to play that one-on-one with the quarterback and hope your guy wins, or you got to roll too high, roll the safety over to take McLaurin away, and that's going to open up other guys. It's going to open up the run game. So with the pass game, the one-on-one ISO shots to McLaurin, can you defend those? And then the run game, can you be able to win the chess battle of the perimeter jet looks that Washington's probably going to give you? I think it's going to be the biggest focal point for this Pittsburgh defense.
And as we already talked about, with Alex Highsmith in there, I'm running right at him too. I want to see if because those backs can get to the edge.
Right. Yeah. Just make this defense run overall. Make these guys be tired, and Highsmith test that conditioning and things like that, and slow down that pass rush, obviously.
Right. And they don't. Once again, they don't want to get in a situation, I don't think, where they're having Alex. Look, we've seen Alex Smith in the past kind of fold under some of this Steelers pressure. You go back to that game a couple years ago. I think the last time the Steelers played him when he was with the Chiefs, they got after him early. The Steelers, I think, jumped on Kansas City early in that game. I think Cameron Hayward came out. Wasn't that a game that Cameron Hayward had something like 3 sacks in or something as well too? And look, this is still not having Bud Dupree. Obviously is a big blow, but this is still, you get Stephon Tuitt's going to be chomping at the bit to get back in this game. That's going to be a pretty good matchup over there on that side with him and Sheriff as well, and Moses on. This might be the biggest test, I think, from a tackle, and I think I said this the other day, from a tackle perspective, this might be the best set of tackles that the Steelers have faced this year. It's going to be interesting to watch what happens on that other side there with Tuitt and Watt versus guys like Sheriff and Moses.
Yeah, it's a great point. And then the last thing I would say for this offense is the trickery that Michael talked about, where they've used Logan Thomas in a variety of ways, quarterback sneaks, throwing the football. They ran that Fumblerooski play that he mentioned. I mean, they do a couple definitely new things, and they've had a lot of time off. They know Pittsburgh's on a short week, and so Pittsburgh's preparing just for the base install, the overall structure of Washington's offense. And so, can you throw a new wrinkle at them that they obviously have not been able to prepare for? That would not surprise me. So watch out for those tricky Washington football team.
You go back to that game of Washington, I think against Detroit, where they had, how many turnovers did Washington have in that game? 5 or something?
Was it?
That obviously hugely impacted their turnover differential for the season. I think in their last 3 games, though, they're like +2 or something. They've been on the right side of this thing, and obviously the Jets have fired defensive coordinator Greg Williams.
He helped them. They should promote him.
Holy moly!
For running the tank.
Yeah, I was hoping we would get to that before something had happened on this. We'll obviously get to that here in a little bit there, but this just coming in quite interesting.
Yeah.
Where was I on this? Look, if they, one of my 5 keys in this game, Alex, was the good old fashioned talk stat, because I think this is going to be a close game. Overall. And with that, I think, the team that comes out +2 or better on the talk stat. Here's the thing. The Steelers have not done a great job at creating explosive plays offensively this year. They're kind of in the bottom third when it comes to that. Now, they have created, I think, 4 more explosive plays overall than Washington's offense has. They're not a truly explosive offense either. And then when you look on the other side of this thing, both teams overall do a great job of not giving up explosive plays. So I think explosive plays are going to be a premium in this game. I think both teams can kind of match each other there. What's going to happen in the turnover battle? This is a game that I think 1 or 2 turnovers, obviously turnover battle in every game is important, but I think really when you look at the Steelers kicker situation in this one, is there a chance that a missed kick plays a part in this game? That one key turnover plays a part in this game? I really think it can. And that's why I highlighted the talk stat as being very important in this game. I think this is going to be a true +2 talks game. I think the winner of this game is going to be +2. End of story, period.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. If you expect this game to be close, and those turnover battles are certainly kind of what these games tend to boil down to. To flip over to Washington's defense, and as Michael talked about, and as we've discussed all week here, Dave, it starts with that front four, and really the multiple guys that they can rotate in. First round picks abound, whether you're talking Chase Young, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat, Ryan Kerrigan, top pick in 2011. I mean, there's just a lot of talent up front, so it's no surprise to see them second in defensive sacks with 36, only trailing, of course, the Pittsburgh Steelers.
You know, you look at the Steelers; they're a pedigree defense, aren't they? You know, really a pedigree team altogether. But when you especially look at that defense, you think, man, the Steelers defense better be good. Look at all the pedigree in it. Well, hats off to I think Washington's building things the right way. There, I think in today's NFL, if you don't have a good defense, especially a pass defense, then you're just spinning your wheels altogether. And you know, obviously they've got still to make some improvement on the offensive side of football moving forward. I think they will with Ron Rivera moving forward there. But I think they got a good enough nucleus, and you know, you probably don't, you know, the high profile names probably not there in the secondary. They probably lack a truly a more athletic off the ball linebacker core there, but I think a good nucleus there overall, and rushing coverage go hand in hand, right? They've got the rush end of it, I think, handled. And this is a game, and one of the other 5 keys in this game. How, you know, over the last 4 or 5 games, Roethlisberger has attempted 44 minimum, I think, pass attempts. I don't think even with Ben getting rid of the football very quickly this season, I don't think this is a game where you want Ben to have to attempt 44 pass attempts.
Yeah, certainly facing a much tougher pass rush threat than you did against, say, Jacksonville or Tennessee or the depleted Ravens roster that was missing a lot of their key edge rushers and pass rushers, Calais Campbell, Matthew Judon, etc. I would say Washington, I don't have the stat for this. I'm not even sure if it exists. It probably does somewhere. But I would say Washington runs more stunts and twists in games than any other defense I've watched this season, maybe more than any other defense in football overall. So they don't blitz a lot. They're average overall, but they run a lot of twists in games with their D tackles and DNs. They'll even do those fake twists sometimes where it looks like they're going to stunt and they don't, and they just play it straight up. So I think the communication for this offensive line, staying on the same level, recognizing stuff, passing things off, especially assuming the J.C. Hassenauer is going to make his second career start, just working together as a unit is going to be really critical, because obviously on those games, if one guy fails, they all fail, and that'll result in immediate pressure.
And I think that's why you made the offensive line the X factor in this game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 36 sacks, basically one of the top pass rushers in football with one of the best pass protecting units in football. Again, partially because Penn gets the ball off his hand so quickly, understand that. But yeah, that is going to be the matchup. Whoever plays to their numbers better is probably going to win this one.
Yeah, I want to test. I'm looking at J.C. Hassenauer, and I want him to have to deal with a lot of stuff, and along with the communication, everything else that goes. Look, it's I mean, his first, his game against Baltimore was okay. Just that, right? We saw some issues sometimes with some blitzing and all like that. I don't think Washington's going to have to blitz all that much in this game. But if they do, that's just one other thing. As you mentioned, boy, if you get these guys twisting and stunting in there and maybe get these guys off levels, talking about Hassenauer and Matt Filer, who hasn't been fantastic this year, and DeCastro, all like that, that's how you get through there. And you don't, once again, it goes back, I don't think you want Ben dropping back 44 times throwing in this game.
Yeah, Hassenauer is fine in his first start. You avoided disaster, and you kind of take it for how quickly he was anointed starter and baptism by fire. But I will say, as you mentioned, Dave, almost every time that Baltimore blitzed, and they didn't blitz a lot, but every single time they did, they basically got a free rusher. There was a lot of safe 4 or 5 man pressures, overloading one side, being able to blitz away from where the slide protection was going, and so that's the concern, is that will Washington get home with 1 or 2 key blitzes to get themselves a free rusher that can obviously create a lot of chaos.
And as I said, one of those free rushers got the jejunum shot on Vitt. That hurt, man. That looked like it hurt. And Look, you've got, when you look at their coaching staff, a lot of experience on the defensive side of football, right? With Ron Rivera, defensive mind, Jack Del Rio, defensive mind there, and they have had the extra time to study this thing out. So, they know, they probably know that they're probably not going to score a lot of points offensively in this game. So that means that their defense is going to have to come up huge in this game, and you know, I would expect them to do whatever they need to do to stop the run and get after Roethlisberger in this game. And if Roethlisberger is going to get rid of the football quick, then he's going to have to get rid of it uber quick and make some good decisions with it as well too. And look, I know we've talked about this streak and the offensive line and Ben Roethlisberger not being sacked the next amount of games, 200, or I think right at about 200 dropbacks. That's going to end in this game.
Yeah.
Let's just face it. He's gonna get sacked in this game. The thing that you don't want is him being sacked 4 or 5 times in this game, or him taking unnecessary hits, or him losing a football or time or two on a sack or two. Make no mistake about it. The strength of this Washington defense coming into this game that you hit on already is this defensive front and the pedigree that goes along with it.
Absolutely. And in the secondary and the linebacking core behind the front four, it's not as pedigree as you mentioned, but they're, as Mike Tomlin said, is a very sound fundamental group. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They're allowing an unusually high amount of big plays, but I don't really see that from defensive busts or miscommunication or things like that. They play more quarters defense than any other defense in football, about 1/5 of the time. They'll play cover 4, so we'll see how Pittsburgh attacks that, maybe with some play action, draw those safeties in, throw over the top. We'll see what the plan of attack there is, but they're just a fundamental sound. The safeties, they run support well, they fill the alley really well, whether you're talking Cameron Curl or Troy Apke or Jeremy Reeves, as Michael mentioned. Again, just a team that is very fundamental, will not beat themselves, and Pittsburgh obviously will beat themselves occasionally, as they did against Baltimore on Wednesday. So that'll be the challenge for Pittsburgh to play mistake-free football.
Yeah, once again, look, they as a defense overall, they're playing well, and yeah, they have given. Can you get one of those double explosives on them? That's the biggest question in this game, because I think the Steelers' offense is going to need some chunks in this game, plain and simple. Because look, we want to say that come out, run the football well, and fix some of this stuff that's been happening. But where's your overall optimism at right now, where the Steelers running game goes when it comes to, look, you can have successful plays, and they did that. They had a nice percentage of success rate against Baltimore. That's great. That's definitely very nice to see, based on how the previous 3 or 4 games going. But even so, sure would be nice to mix in. We saw the Rams running back bust off that 30-something yard touchdown in that game yesterday, and I put the lonely Pablo. I don't know how many people caught that, but it's just because you look at kind of those runs and you think, man, it sure would be nice if the Steelers had one of those.
What's Pittsburgh's longest run outside of James Conner's 59-yard run against Denver this year? How many other big runs have they really had? Not many.
Not many.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, to your question about the confidence in this run game, it's hard to be very confident about it. Again, I do like that Benny Snell at least will avoid the negativity. We'll just get downhill, and I'll just kind of get a guy that's 3 yards in a cloud of dust, as opposed to a run game that goes nowhere and gets a lot of negative plays and puts yourself in 2nd and 14 plus. So I think Benny Snell, while obviously a very low ceiling type of back, is kind of the right kind of back for the offense right now, just to stay on schedule, just to plow ahead, fall forward, and get 3-4 yards a pop is kind of I'll take it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to utilize these backs out of the backfield. One positive, I think, or one of the positives coming out of that game against Baltimore was Benny did some good things with the ball in his hands, not on running plays there. I think there's going to be opportunities to run a lot of quick screens in this game. Wide receiver, I know fans hate that, but your run game alternatives have got to be on point, I think, in this game, big time. I'm trying to look at what the biggest They had the Ray McLeod right in run for 58 yards.
Right.
Obviously, the James Conner late run against the Broncos for 59 that busted open. Benny Snell left tackle for 30 yards against the Giants. That seems like 3 seasons ago now. There. And then James Conner, 25 against the Texans. I mean, it's been, I guess the James Conner, that one is split open for 25 yards against the Jaguars there. But
a lot of those came early in the year, though. The first month they could run the ball. Since then, though, we have not really seen much of anything.
Right. You want to see one of those. It'd be nice to see one of those split open for. And look, I think the Redskins. There I go.
There you go. Ben was doing that a lot. I heard Ben the other day.
The Washington football team has given up three of those 12 double explosive plays have been runs. Okay, so. How are you going to get? I want to see. I want to make those linebackers work more than they have, and yeah, we're seeing this pre-snap motion early in games, but we're seeing them get away from it. I think, and I think they're getting away from it too soon. And we're not going to see Ben under center running play action much of any in this game, but would it hurt to run some play action out of the shotgun? On early downs there. And I know it's probably not as effective, but man, at least make these linebackers for Washington work a little bit more. All right, because Bostic is what he is. He's more of a downhill guy as far as that goes. So, look, I think you got to try to run early in this game once again, almost like the Baltimore game, and hopefully you're not behind and have to abandon any of that, so you can run late. So run, age-old Dave on this. Run successful early so you can run more and successful later in it.
Yeah, and I'm borrowing your return philosophy for the run game is just take the handoff, run fast straight ahead. Like, just get downhill, fall forward, and get what you can overall. And, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like, John Bostic's their leading tackler. Go after Bostic. Steeler fans know him well. We know what his limitations are. You can attack John Bostic.
Sure, and you can attack him with maybe doing some things that you did against Baltimore, too. And if that's in the game plan, I keep it in there. And that's moving splitting Anthony McFarland. See who runs around with Anthony McFarland in this game.
Or Ebron. I was thinking just Ebron just post up on Boston.
Right. Once again, I offensively for the Steelers, because of kind of the coverages I think that we're going to see out of Washington in this game, I want to make those linebackers work in this game as much as possible. That's probably the weakest part of their defense, so I got to exploit their linebackers in this game, their off-the-ball linebackers as best as I can in this game.
Absolutely. All right, Dave, any other thoughts in previewing this game against Washington? Anything else Steeler fans should be watching out for today?
I think we hit on it. You better protect that damn football on the offense because look, they're not an explosive offense overall, but we have seen McLaren make some plays. Who's the other kid that's doesn't have a lot of catches but put up some big plays for them?
Cam Sims.
Yeah. That guy and Dontre, is Inman gonna? I assume he's still gonna be up and active for this game, right?
Probably. Dontrell Inman. Yeah.
I mean, he's a guy that's got a little bit of explosiveness to him as well. There, the biggest sin that you could commit in this game was one that they committed against Baltimore. You muff a punt or you give this offense a short field. Pound for pound, I wouldn't expect this the Washington to score more than 20, 21, 22 points, something like that at tops. But if you give them, if you let them steal a possession in your own end, well, then you get what you get at that point. And make no mistake, this is a Steelers team coming off of a short week, all right? This is kind of a depressed team, if you will, as well, too, because of losing Bud Dupree. I think, how many times have you heard that? Boy, it sure is disappointing. Losing Bud, and then obviously not having Steven Nelson's big in this game. Not having your kicker is another, say what you will, but that's pretty big in this game.
It's huge. Yeah, especially when your alternative is a guy making his NFL debut.
Right. So, there's a lot of little things on the peripheral here overall, and it goes back to this. Look, the record is what the record says they are, as Mike Tomlin says, which is a 4-7 team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think you and I hit on this right from the get-go, especially after after the Thanksgiving game. And yeah, it was just Dallas, blah blah blah. This is a team that I think is probably laying in the weeds, if you will, and I think pound for pound they are the most underrated team right now in the NFC. Period.
Yeah, I think they certainly are better than the record indicates. And again, I think a lot has changed since they turned to Alex Smith. I did see a stat that basically said, if you look at their splits between NFC East versus everybody else, they're good against the NFC East/least, and they're bad versus everyone else. So, we'll kind of maybe get a good indication of whether or not that stat is accurate or not today. But yeah, they're good. They're a better team than the record indicates for sure. And the last point I would say on Washington is they have a very good punter in Tress Way that can help flip the field. I think he's always last 2 years been the tops in football and average and net and things like that. So again, special teams could be a big talking point today. Steelers without their kicker, Washington with a really good punter, something to consider as well.
And don't think Ron Rivera. We saw that last time these Rivera faced the Steelers. He was with the Panthers, and obviously the Steelers, I think, blew them out. That was a Monday,
Thursday night,
Thursday or Monday,
21, yeah.
And that old halftime speech there. Ron Rivera's going to sell the living mess. This is David versus Goliath, type situation, and you got to really respect him as a coach. I know I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's a good defensive mind. I think Del Rio's a good defensive mind. And it goes back once again is they're going to have plenty of time to scheme some stuff up defensively there. So the Steelers better be ready up front. And I think it was appropriate for you to choose the offensive line, the Steelers offensive line as the X factor in this game, because if for some reason should the Steelers lose this game, I have a feeling we're going to be talking a lot about the offensive line.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point about Rivera. There's a reason why Pittsburgh interviewed him back in 2007 when they were looking for Bill Cowher's replacement, and shares a lot of the same qualities that Mike Tomlin has, and that's why they've both been very successful since 2007. All right, Dave, I think, where do we go from here? Because we don't really have a pick'em to do. It's a very weird day here with the week gone. Do we want to make our picks for this Washington game, or do we have anything else you want to discuss?
Yeah, real quick. I mean, what do you think about somebody? The good thing about the Steelers' schedule being all kind of messed up the last couple of weeks here is we've gotten to watch, at least I have, gotten to watch a lot of Sunday football here. And boy, I just had a blast yesterday switching around to all these games and thinking that I had it all set. Boy, I had TV number 3 on Cleveland versus Tennessee, thinking, man, what a great game this is gonna be. And it got away from Tennessee right out of the chute, and then somehow Tennessee worked there. It was a classic. You know what that game proved to me? That adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat means a whole hell of a lot in that game, because really you look at both offenses versus both defenses there. I think that stat played right up to it. So, what did you think about that Browns versus Titans game?
Yeah, well, it just says the Titans, your defense has been the biggest issue all year long, and it continues to be. And with Cleveland, I mean, Baker can be a really inconsistent player, but there's obviously a lot of talent there. And Jarvis Landry seemed healthy, and that run game is legit, and that offensive line is an incredibly talented group across the board. They got Wyatt Teller back, Shredder at center, the tackles, and Wolves and Conklin. They're a talented team for sure. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And so Cleveland, they're a higher variance team than most 9-3 clubs, but they can obviously put up a lot of points.
Yeah, but I thought it was appropriate last night. I saw a tweet. Baker was throwing on air a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Tennessee's a bad defense for sure.
Right. If we learned anything, not that we needed to learn it, I think it was pretty much an understood anyway. Tennessee's not winning the Super Bowl this year, correct?
Correct.
Plain and simple. Now, I don't know how much you want to read into the Browns. Look, Nick Chubb is and that running back group as a whole with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, probably one of the best in the NFL right now, right?
Yeah, I think the best 1-2 duo in football.
And even if you took Hunt away from it, Chubb's up there top as far as single backs go there. Outside of that, though, that Browns defense became the fact that they let the Titans back in that game. I'd be a little bit concerned if I'm kind of a classic. What was the game earlier in the season? Dallas, was it?
Yeah, where Dallas kind of had to start that comeback, and then Odell had that big end-around score that put him away. Yeah,
right. I mean, I'm not too confident about that Browns defense overall, and I'm not overly bullish on their offense right now. Look, for them to be where they're at record-wise right now says a lot, right?
Yeah,
but what is going to be the narrative of this Browns team if they go and play Baltimore next week and they lose?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to them being that variance team, high and low, and that's partially because of their defense, partially because of some inconsistent play at quarterback, and losing some weapons. Obviously, losing Odell Beckham Jr. has been huge. But I think they were throwing some open receivers, but they did a really good job of scheming those guys open. Like with Peoples-Jones with that long touchdown, that was a great double move, and they just run a lot of misdirection and find ways to get guys open. So it was a pretty easy game for Baker in that regard. But schematically, they do a good job of getting guys open in the first place, which is a quarterback stream, of course.
Are they going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I think the percentages are like 90% plus.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, they should make it.
Okay, I mean they got games against Baltimore and Pittsburgh, and who else does Cleveland have to play down? Anyway, none of us I think are going to think that Cleveland's a Super Bowl team this year, right?
Right. No, but they'll be in the playoffs.
I mean, they have here's who they have left. They have Baltimore. They have the Giants, who I don't know. Giants kind of a Jekyll Hyde team, right? And then they have obviously the Jets, who will be really looking to tank it out, and then the Steelers. So can they win two more of these games?
Sure. Yeah. Even if they only win one and they finish 10-6, that's probably good enough with the 7 seeds this year. But if they win 2, then yeah, they're guaranteed to make it 11-5.
All right. What else? What'd you think about? Look, going into this weekend or on Sunday, the Steelers needed a loss or a tie from before their game to make the playoffs. They needed either a loss or tie from Miami, the Raiders, or the Colts. Now, going into this, everybody probably said there's no way any of that's going to happen. All right. Well, we got about 12 seconds away from the Jets upsetting the Raiders. And that plays back into us being, going over the news of Greg Williams being fired. I understand it. A tank's hard to do to get everybody on board there, but man, that call by Greg Williams just smells like have at it, right? I mean, how do you run cover 0 there and let that happen that late in the game?
Yeah, terrible call. And I mean, is it really that they were intentionally tanking the coaching staff, a coaching staff that's not going to be here next year? I don't know. Maybe that's just the reason why they're a winless team, because they do things like cover 0 with 12 seconds left, and that's not a bug. That's just a feature of the coaching staff. I'm not sure, but yeah, that was pretty funny for sure. And so Pittsburgh will now control their own destiny. If they win tonight, they will clinch a playoff spot.
Right. I just that was so Jets thing to do. All you have to do is keep your safeties back, right? I mean, play
right.
cover, play quarters or something,
Anything but what they did. And I gotta feel bad for those guys. I mean, those players, I want them to win. I don't want to be winless. That sucks to have that history.
Boy, did you see Marcus May's press conference?
Can he still be traded to Pittsburgh? He'd probably like to come here right now, join Avery. I know that's not possible, but yeah, he was definitely very upset at that for sure, and rightfully so, because that's so frustrating. You work so hard, so close to your first win, gonna make one more play, and that's the defense they call. I mean, that is just terrible.
Anything else stick out to you in some of those Sunday games?
Yeah, I had to laugh watching the Sunday night football game and KC playing a tough game against Denver, and I'm sure the national media is talking all about how the close games that KC plays and how overrated they must be. It just made me laugh. And again, it's a realization of it is hard to win in the NFL. I don't care how good you are. I don't care what players you have. You don't win by 50 in the NFL too often.
Oh, you mean there's no such thing as a trap game?
Just people think that, you got a much better team, you're going to automatically win by 25 points. It's just not how it works in the NFL. Most NFL games are close because they're professionals and the talent level is pretty slim. It's not like college where the talent margins are significantly wide. That's just not how it works in football,
Look,
professional football.
I had a whole hell of a lot of fun with that
Me too.
during the game on Twitter. Do I think Kansas City still one of, if not the top team right now in the NFL?
Sure.
Look, it's the Steelers in Kansas City, no matter how you want to stack that right now. But I think it is kind of funny when you look at the Chiefs last 4 games. They've had a win margin of a combined, I think, 15 points, and then the Steelers' last 4 is 60, and yet somehow we're, all the talk is the Steelers the worst, 11-0 team in the NFL. Okay, even if the Steelers are the worst 11-0 team in the NFL or in the history of the NFL, give me the 11-0 record any time of the week, right? Look, we cover the team nonstop. It's easy for us to pick out the warts, and as part of trying to be maybe uber objective sometimes with this team, right? But the fact of the matter is, this team still has found a way to win some of these games that they quite easily could have lost. That's the difference in the NFL, I believe, is winning some of these close games that maybe you should have lost. You know what they call almost losing, Alex?
They call that winning.
Right. And this is a game that I think, let's get to it, right? This is a game that Monday night against Washington that the Steelers might almost win or might almost lose.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be one of those games. And so for my prediction for this one, I almost went with Washington. I didn't quite have the guts and the courage to do it, but I have Pittsburgh winning this one 21-20, just all the factors. Pittsburgh on a short week, missing Steven Nelson. Washington is a healthy team, missing their kicker. The Washington pass rush, just a fundamental defense that does not beat themselves that much in general. Talking about Washington and the Ron Rivera coach group, I think this will be a close game. Pittsburgh wins by a point, 21-20.
I thought for sure you did the rope a dope on me. I thought for sure that you were going to pick Washington in this game.
Game close.
I thought for sure. Look, I came close to because of almost being sure. Or not. That's not the only reason. But I thought for sure. I thought we're going to have a nice little balance here in this. I came awfully close to picking Washington to win this game as well too. This just kind of does not set up great for the Steelers. And what's really got me kind of worried is this whole kicker thing. This kid's gonna be put out there to make a 43-yarder, I think, in this game, and it might be the difference in the game. Quite honestly, here. I'm going to go ahead and give the Steelers the benefit of the doubt here. But this whole talk stat turnover thing, Ben dropping back to maybe throw 40 times in this game has gotten me bugged. This is a Washington team better than the record, I think, especially right now the way they're playing. All right, I'll go with the Steelers on this one, but I am worried about it, and I'm obviously right along the lines with you. I had the Steelers. Maybe it ends up being Washington that misses the kick in this one, but 23-20. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a field goal game either way here. I'll go ahead and take the Steelers 23-20 with this one, but I thought for sure you'd pick Washington in this game. I came close to picking them as well too, but I'll go ahead and because it's the home team, Mike Tomlin gets them over one more time in this one, 23-20 at home.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, some things obviously in Pittsburgh's favor. They're still the better team overall. There's no dispute about that, and hopefully, I think Mike Tomlin's lit a fire into these guys and tore into them last week, and hopefully there's no way they're going to drop 8 passes the way they did against Baltimore. So they should clean up those things and not beat themselves to the degree in which they beat themselves against Baltimore. And again, just always finding ways to win, always finding ways to close out the game. And they are doing a good job in pass protection that would help minimize the Washington impact. So there are obviously positives in this one. But, yeah, I think Washington's an underrated team, and they play games close.
All right, we kind of went reverse here. The other Monday night game, San Francisco hosting Buffalo in this one. Pick'em game.
Give me Buffalo.
Yeah, they can't afford to lose this game. I mean, they can, but they can't. I smell a rat here for some reason, but anyway, yeah, Buffalo should win this one. I think they will. So give me Buffalo. And then the good old Tuesday night football. I think it's a sham that this one got put off. Yada yada. You know the way that it did. Is Dallas potentially waiting in the weeds like Washington is with the Steelers in this one? This one technically shouldn't be close. At least Vegas doesn't think it's going to be. The Ravens favored by 9 in this one.
Yeah, give me Baltimore. Lamar's back. They're going to have most of their pieces in place. I think they'll still be without guys like Mark Andrews, but obviously the roster is going to be in a much better place than it was. In the Pittsburgh game, Dallas is still a mess, so give me Baltimore by 10.
All right. Baltimore's going to win this game, but I think it's going to be closer than people think. So give me Dallas plus the 9 points in this.
All right, fair enough. Okay, Dave, I think that's everything besides some reader emails. Let's get to some of those and close out today's show.
This one from Dan Devlin. Let's see. Been preoccupied several weeks. Caught up on some previous podcasts. Surprised so many questions about whether the team needs an OC with Ben's success in hurry-up situations. Ben did a great job versus the Ravens, but people do realize OC calls plays based on circumstances while Ben can adjust after seeing action formation. Offensive coordinator Roethlisberger called a couple of plays in that game and some in the hurry up in that opening drive in the short yardage situation there. And I'm interrupting this email here. Should the Steelers fire Ben?
They should.
I mean, you get where I'm coming at here, right?
Yeah. Nah, yeah, I hear you. What's the emailer's question? Is he saying they don't need an OC, or is he?
But people do realize. I think he's just trying to point out that it's not all the OC here. You know, in
right.
certain situation. There's no real question here. But do people realize OC calls plays based on circumstances while Ben can adjust actually seeing the format? Yeah, a lot of people look. A lot of you listening to this podcast need to get educated a little bit more on and more into the X's and O's of the game. Okay, it's not. A lot of you look at it as pass fail, results biased, and you think that you're smarter by getting out on Twitter and hollering for the offensive coordinator to be fired. Plain and simple. I don't know how much more blunt I can be than that. You will enjoy the game a lot better when you understand what happens on the actual play, on the pre-snap and all like that. Yeah, Ben's given how much is this the most autonomy Ben's ever been given in an offense before, period?
I feel like it, yeah. I really do.
So when plays don't work a lot of times, where does the blame need to go? If it's not a drop pass,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's just a case by case thing. It just depends on what you saw in that play.
Now, it boils down to game plans and play preparation and all like that. But let's look at the entire thing sometimes, and not just results fail of each individual play there. And another thing, I think too, someone said, if Randy runs one more time on 2nd and 10, I've got to be sick. Well, they're towards the bottom, bottom third of the league when it comes to actual runs on 2nd and 10.
Yeah, that's a good stat. Yeah, I think I said before, the neutral run pass rates on 1st and 2nd down. Pittsburgh's in that top group in terms of high pass percentage. I mean, they're throwing the ball 40 plus times in the last 4 games. Like, they're throwing the ball plenty.
Now, does that mean we're running around getting excited for a 2nd and 10 or longer run? No, no. But look at the big picture when analyzing this. Dan writes, was Danny Smith's group really bad versus the Cowboys, or was it more unique circumstances and Dallas playing with nothing? Evidently, he got this email in and then resent it and all like that. Another thing, also, did Chase Claypool have a particularly tough game, or are expectations too high? Several drops and a few questionable plays. He goes on to say, you both do a tremendous job, and it's a joy to listen. Take care. Look, the the biggest takeaway from Chase Claypool right now, plain and simple, is it's something I've pointed out all along, and you'd like to see him make just one or two more of these plays down the field when he has pass interference on him. And then B, I want to see more of him stacking guys on the outside and winning that way, plain and simple. That, am I worried about these drops and this other stuff with him? No. He's playing exactly the way he played at Notre Dame, if you ask me, top to bottom. I just would like to see one or two more plays down the field.
Yeah, I'm with you. I do want to see him clean up the catches, though. Not that I'm super concerned about it, but obviously there's some plays left on the table there for sure. But yeah, just the ebbs and flows. We're super spoiled by the success Claypool's having. We got to remember sometimes he is a young rookie, and the situation's been crazy, and it's not always going to be perfect.
Right. I'm not worried about the kid where he's at right now. Look, he's playing a lot more than what we thought he'd play. He's making some plays there. And I guess the other thing is, in light of Washington, and I mean, there seems to have been a big push to pit James Washington against whomever this past week. Did you feel it? Did you feel like there's been a push by outside influences, i.e. the media, to make a play for Washington to get on the field more?
I think there were questions about it, just given the big play that he made. But I think if anyone lobbied for it, it was Ben, who I think explicitly said, let's get Washington on the field more. So I don't know if it was a media creation. I just think it was, coming off Washington making a big play late in the game.
Yeah, but how do you make that happen without taking Ebron or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's easier said than done.
Sure. Yeah, but is the notion that Washington deserves more playtime fair? Yeah, I think it is. And how will that look, and how do you do it is an important question. But does Washington deserve to see more playtime? Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
All right, how do you get him on the field more? Who at whose expense?
Yeah, I mean, it could be a lot. It could be Claypool coming off a little bit less. It could be where you play Claypool in the slot a little bit more, and Washington comes on, and Ray's not playing some of the snaps he is in the slot. I mean, there's a million different ways you could go ahead and try to do it for sure. It's not that one guy and one guy alone is going to be losing those snaps at the expense of James Washington. I think it's a couple guys that may lose a couple snaps.
All right, from Jesse Hernandez writes in, hey guys, I've been a frequent emailer and you guys are great with answering my questions. Now, I'm a huge Steeler fan and a huge Terrible Podcast fan. I posted a photograph with nearly 11,000 minutes I've listened this year. That was great to get some of that. Who was that? Spotify that kind of given listeners kind of, I guess, a recap of 2020. And Alex and I just absolutely love some of those that we got on Twitter there. From listeners there. Ben has he goes on to say Ben has a way with Steelers Nation. He comes through fourth quarter drive after fourth quarter drive, and this year he's 11-0. No matter how good he's been this year, minus the deep ball accuracy, that red zone interception really annoyed all of us. Now, let's admit, that pass at the end of the game made us all initially feel that same feeling. It was completed, and thankfully we won the game. With that being said, if he throws a game-losing interception in that same style during the AFC playoffs, would you lose all faith in him ever winning us another Super Bowl? I'm knocking on wood now because I do truly love my quarterback. Thank you, David Alex. Look, first and foremost, the red zone interception, I have no issue with that interception other than the personnel grouping that was out there on the field and the actual positioning of said position group on that play. Why are you going to go kind of spread like that with Watt? I mean, that's the biggest issue. Once the play broke down and on, you had Snell and McDonald outside the back of the end zone. Throw the damn thing up for grabs. Okay, as long as that thing doesn't get returned 104 yards for a touchdown or even 20 yards, I'm not fine with it being a turnover, but I understand why he did what he did. It's been trying to make a play, and then if somehow that ball gets tipped and touchdown or whatever, nobody's probably batting an eye at it. I'll answer the second half in a minute. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a low risk of a YOLO pass as you can have. Would I, if this happened again in an AFC title game, would I feel like I have no confidence in Ben to win a Super Bowl? No, the biggest concern would just be time.
No,
And you have
he's
so many
talking
of these
about
years.
I think he's mentioning I think that's where we need to tie back into us talking about the play to James Washington. I think what he's trying to say is if we go back to that play and if that play ends up that specific play ends up being an interception.
Oh, if that one.
I think he's trying to separate these two. The red zone interception and then Ben making that play to Washington
Okay.
against Baltimore, and had that particular play coming in the AFC game or playoffs and been an interception.
Yeah, I mean, even then, it sounds like I wouldn't have confidence in Ben. I mean, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That's always been Ben's MO. I mean, that touchdown pass to Antonio Holmes to beat Arizona was pretty dicey, pretty risky as well. But you made the play, so that's just always who Ben has been. But again, my answer would just be that there's just a time factor. You only have so many of these seasons left, and that would be the biggest concern about can you win it? Because if you don't do it this year, you might only have one or two of these chances left, bites at the apple. So no, I'll never not have confidence in Ben to lead this team and to win the Super Bowl.
No, it'd be disappointing, especially if that's the way you bow out. But look, Ben has been that cowboy. Live by the sword, die by the sword, and most of the time that stuff works out for him. So one play. No, I mean, you'd be disappointed, obviously, but I'm not walking him out to the end of the plank because make no mistake about it. You better love what you're seeing, what's left of it right now, because there's going to come a time sooner rather than later at this point. Although I have mocked the people that have said since 2011 or 10 or 12 or whenever the window is closing, that window's still open right now. And I think come extension time in March or April, that window, even though it's a different bin now, all right, the window's still going to be open. But you're going to look back at these days with Ben Roethlisberger and say, oh, man, because there's bound to be franchise quarterbacks do not grow on trees as many think that they do here. Back to that play again. You and I talked about it. Have you had a chance to go back and look at some of the things I pointed out at you, and where do you come down on that play after doing so if you did?
I did, and it still makes me very queasy to watch that play. I don't know.
Do you
I
understand what he did?
I do. Oh, I do. I understand. But man, middle of the field close, safety at 10-yard steps. I'd rather not.
There's a lot of trust in that, right?
There's a lot of trust for sure. I mean, and Washington made a great play, and that ball was where it had to be because it couldn't be anywhere else, and a good outcome come from that play. But
only one person was catching that ball, though, right? Plain and simple.
That safety wants to be more aggressive.
Yeah, but
he could have played it better for sure. Like that safety, I don't know. I thought he didn't play it aggressively enough. It was where it had to be for Washington to catch it, but it could have been a lot of spots where somebody else caught it too. Is the concern. It worked though. I mean, who am I to judge?
Right. I mean, it's still. I mean, it. Did you still feel as bad watching it from the end zone view?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say look at the sideline of the Steelers players. The only guys who are clapping is the coaching staff and Anthony Coyle, who was just happy to be there. The rest of the players are just like, okay, we're just our hearts trying to start again. Like they were happy, but everyone was holding their breath on that play.
I mean, but still, there was only one. Lobster Boy was the only one going to make that catch.
Lobster Man.
Lobster Man. Yeah, there's some man hands, ain't it?
I
think the best thing about all that is you and I just got a question about him and whether what the ceiling is, and look, that play encapsulates what James Washington's ceiling is, right?
Yeah, and it encapsulates Ben's, go for it mentality, and when it works, you get really good outcomes like that, even if they're pretty scary to watch live.
Let me ask you this. This is gonna be weird, but it hit me watching that Packers game yesterday. Is Devontae Adams a very rich man's James Washington? Does that make
Yeah, a
sense?
very rich, like a Jeff Bezos version of James Washington.
Do you kind of get it though?
Yeah, the big, strong, physical, combative catch kind of dudes. Yeah, I get
Better
that.
route runner,
Yeah, Devontae's a much better route runner than Washington. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
or is what's a better terminology there? Is James Washington an extremely poor man's Devontae Adams? I don't know if that works. I don't know if the two really work together great.
There's
But
probably a better comparison out there, but I hear what you're saying.
I mean, they're both are extremely great combative catch at the point kind of catch players, and maybe that's how I'm trying to tie them all together. But they do kind of have similar builds, right?
Yeah, I
They
think
both
Adams
can.
is like
They
5'11".
both obviously can stretch the field. That catch that Devontae made, oh my God, the ball that Rodgers put there. That's another one of those though that ball has got to be put right. And you know what catch I'm talking about with Devontae Adams, right?
The
Right
touchdown.
between three. No, the one down the field, right between the three people in the
Oh
game
yeah.
from
That
the
deep
end
ball.
zone.
Yep. I got you.
I mean, that ball's got to be put right where it was put for only Devontae to make that
Hmm.
catch. If that's not and it's intercepted, we're what's Aaron Rodgers thinking there? You know?
Right. Yeah. Well, Rodgers is one of the best deep ball throwers of his
Right.
generation. Yeah.
But there is such a fine line, I think, between good quarterbacks in this league, and there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this league, and quarterbacks that put that ball there like Ben Roethlisberger put it there with James Washington. That's the difference there. And look, who's going to win the Super Bowl this year? We'll find out. But it's going to be Mahomes, Rodgers, Breeze, Roethlisberger, Wilson. Help me out here.
I mean, you're naming
Philip
most of the key guys.
Rivers. I mean, it's going to be a quarterback-driven team that's got a good defensive play. Plain and simple, right?
Yeah, it's going to be some quarterback that's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, probably, or real close to it, with all the names you just rattled off. So yeah, I mean, good, strong quarterback play and a defense that creates pressure and turnovers is kind of the key to this thing, and that's what Pittsburgh has right now.
All right, I managed to make this longer than what it should have been. Thank you. You're welcome.
It's the title of your memoir, right?
Yeah. All right, what else do we have? We hit it?
Yeah, that was it. If there's no more reader emails, then we will be back on Wednesday to recap the what happened on Monday. Is it Monday afternoon, evening? I don't know how to call
I don't
5
know.
o'clock.
People say it's not a Monday night game. You can't
Right.
determine a Monday night game. It is a Monday game. I don't know. I got criticized because we titled this Steelers versus Washington. People said you can't use versus because that means the game is away. Yeah, get over it.
Okay.
We'll don't stop
I'll-
reading Steelers Depot then.
Yeah, that's the biggest bugaboo. Then I don't know what to tell you. All right. Anyway, we will be back on Wednesday to recap what happened on Monday and go from there.
All right. One final shout out to our guest and put his Twitter address out there again.
Yeah, Michael Phillips, thank you so much. Be sure to follow him and thank him on Twitter at Michael PRTD. Covers the Washington football team for Richmond Times-Dispatch.
All right, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show the Terrible Podcast at gmail.com. If you like what we do and you don't get mad because we use verses in the headlines, maybe inappropriately, you can send us a donation. Go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button, upper right navigational bar, and that'll take you to PayPal for a secure donation. Or if you'd like to support the site and have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, you can get that by going to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button, upper right navigational bar, and for $25 for one calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of SteelersDepot.com, which has been very, 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 very popular. With that, Alex and I will be back on Wednesday. Make sure you're reading SteelersDepot.com throughout the rest of the day and on up until Alex and I return on Wednesday. And in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.